In the late 13th century, Anatolia was a collection of warring Turkish principalities. The Seljuk Sultanate's collapse left a power vacuum across the peninsula, leaving local tribal leaders to fight for survival in a divided landscape. One of these leaders was Osman. According to Ottoman tradition, he was inspired by a vision of a great tree, whose roots spread across 3 continents and whose branches covered the sky, an omen of the massive empire his descendants would build. To realize that vision, the early Ottomans had to face a formidable obstacle: the Byzantine Empire and its capital, Constantinople, the most strategically vital city of the medieval world. For a young, rising power, a direct assault on the city was a military impossibility. For nearly 1,000 years, the capital had been protected by the Theodosian walls, layers of ancient stone and brick fortifications guarded by massive circular towers. Recognizing the city was too strong to take by force, the Ottomans began a strategic pivot. They focused on conquering the geography surrounding the capital rather than the walls themselves. The 1453 fall of Constantinople was the final result of a century spent systematically cutting the city off from the rest of the world. This strategy of encirclement began under Osman's son, Orhan. In 1352, his forces crossed the Dardanelles, bypassing the city entirely to establish a permanent presence in Europe. Within decades, the Ottomans had conquered almost all of Thrace, moving their own capital to Edirne in 1369. This territorial expansion placed a permanent Ottoman presence directly behind the Byzantine capital, severing its connection to the European mainland. The capture of Thessaloniki from the Venetians intensified this isolation, cutting off the city from essential European maritime trade. When European powers attempted to break the siege from the west, they were crushed at the battles of Kosovo in 1389 and Nicopolis in 1396. This century of campaigning effectively turned Constantinople into an isolated island, a small remnant of an empire entirely surrounded by Ottoman land. The final siege was nearly launched in 1402, until a new threat appeared from the east: Timur, the conqueror, who suddenly invaded Anatolia. Timur's forces defeated the Ottoman army and took Sultan Bayezid I prisoner. This triggered a decade of civil war among the Sultan's sons, granting the Byzantines a temporary reprieve. The Ottomans spent decades rebuilding their strength, eventually defeating a final major European relief force at the Battle of Varna in 1444. In 1451, the 21-year-old Mehmed II took the throne. He immediately focused his resources on the isolated city, bringing a massive army and new artillery to the walls. On May 29, 1453, after weeks of bombardment, Ottoman troops finally breached the defenses and entered the city. The conquest was the direct fulfillment of a geographic encirclement that had been in progress for over a century, ending the Byzantine Empire once and for all. Mehmed II designated the city his new capital, calling it Istanbul. He began transforming its monuments to reflect its new status, most notably converting the Hagia Sophia into a mosque. However, the Sultan aimed to inherit the city's prestige rather than destroy it. He adopted the title Kaiser-i Rum, the Caesar of Rome, claiming the lineage of the Roman emperors he had replaced. To stabilize his rule, he formed an alliance with the Orthodox Patriarch, Gennadius, granting the church administrative and religious autonomy over his new Orthodox subjects. This transition was supported by many locals who felt abandoned by the West. As the official Lucas Notaras put it, they preferred the Sultan's turban than the cardinal's hat. By isolating the city and then co-opting its ancient legacy, the Ottomans successfully absorbed the power of a fallen empire to build an Islamic state that would dominate the Eastern Mediterranean for the next 6 centuries.